everyone. For this lesson, we're going to walk through the budgeting spreadsheet that can help you understand what you can expect to spend on your self-published book. Now, there's a lot of variables here, so as we walk through it, I will try to highlight some of those. And this spreadsheet is downloadable at the end of this lesson. You can download your own version, and you'll have an opportunity to fill out exactly what you can expect to spend based on your needs and your work. So let's get started. Okay, so here is the budget spreadsheet that I put together for you. I want to kind of go through the elements before I dig into the depth of what we're looking at. So in the first column, I have the activity and what it is that you'll be spending money on. Some comments to give you a little bit more information about that. And then I have low, medium, and high, because there's a range of where people end up falling in this price range. So if you're looking to do a very simple book, the low range will give you a good feeling about what you'd be spending there. Mid is kind of the average of what I'm seeing people spending that have been going through the work group. And high is for those who are doing much more complex projects, have a lot more detail, a lot more requirements, and need the extra help and assistance, much higher illustration cost. So I've kind of broken it down that way so that you can kind of get a sense of what the range is. Next, I have a column that we're going to fill out. I'll fill it out as if I was doing my next book. Okay, now this column you can use to tally up what you expect to spend. If you don't need, some of these optional items, you can reduce and limit and then see what your total is for your book. Okay, first is professional edit. This is a must-have for a quality book. If you have a real comfort with, let's just use an example of like a toddler book where it's very, very simple. There are not many words. It doesn't rhyme. There's nothing, all that complex about it. Then perhaps you can get away with a $50 edit, which is more about proofreading and helping you to make sure that there's no issues that you need to target for your book. Next is more of a mid-range of what I would expect, which would be more in the target of $300 for editing. The high end is probably double that as you get into more words. Now, I should preface this by saying that the amounts that I'm putting here are really more in line with a children's book, a picture book, or maybe early chapter book. As you start getting into a lot more lengthy stories, then you're going to find that your editing ends up costing more because the more words, the more work it is for them. So this isn't set in stone by any means. Now, for me, if I'm going to use this as an opportunity to think about my next book, then I'm going to do the 300, and that's my preferred editor's price. So that's what I would budget for. The illustrations, unless you are an author illustrator, then you are going to want to budget for illustration. And I am just basing the initial guidelines here on a typically 32-page picture book that'll require 28 pages of illustration. If your book is much less, for example, if you have words on one page, picture on the other, then perhaps you only have 14 instead of 28. So you can see the formula here that I put is based on the price per page and the number of illustrations. So in this example, the first one, I am estimating $55 per page times 28 illustrations. Now, yes, you can find illustrators that are much less money than this. If you go to Fiverr, if you know, work on finding a student or something like that. But this is a work group for new authors. And so I want to give you a price that will allow you to get some good work at a lower price range, but we're not looking for students. We're not, you know, going on Fiverr and hiring a guy that says he'll do it for $5 or $10 an image, because I want you to be paired with an illustrator that really knows what they're doing and can help you work through this process as a new author. I also want to make sure that you're going to be getting the quality that your picture book deserves. We don't want people to be looking at your cover or your illustrations and saying, this is clearly a self-published book, right? We want the best quality available. So low price, you know, low range would be $55 per illustration. Mid-range, I'm thinking more like $85. And if you really have some detailed, extravagant, you know, I had my first book done by a former Disney illustrator, and I paid $250 per page. I felt at the time that I wanted to do that because illustrations were so important to me, and you can see some of them behind me. But nowadays, if I'm actually looking at budgeting for this myself, I'm probably going to just budget in the mid-range. Actually, you know, for my books, I'm starting to get a more simplified images, and I think spreading them out a little bit more, I would probably go with the 55. So I'm just gonna do the 1540. So yeah, I'll probably do the $55 per image, 28 pages. So cover design, I will just give you a little warning. You do not want to do covers yourself. I know that people are trying to find ways to save money. Your cover is your first impression. So you want that to be something that is really well done. And in this case, especially on Amazon, if somebody is searching and sees your cover, we don't want them to scroll past onto something else. We want something gorgeous that's going to grab their attention and beg them to click on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to pay, typically a low would be $100 for the cover. And that could be, you know, $50 that the illustrator charges to rough the, you know, to illustrate the cover. So like I was saying with my earlier $55 a page. So if you had an illustrator doing, you know, that, and then you have a graphic designer coming behind and doing a $50 workup of the cover, that would be, I think, a reasonable low end of what you can expect. Now, if you want more detail, more work around the cover, higher grade illustration, then you're probably looking at more like 250, and 500 would be on the higher end. That's what I paid for my first book. So typically for me, I am going to just do the $100. I know I can typically repurpose an interior image, or I can have one specifically done and then work with my graphic designer to make it beautiful. And that typically does not cost me more than $100. So that's where I'm putting mine. For design and formatting, once again, this is an area that I need to just caution you. Some people think, oh, I'll just take my Word document or I'll learn how to use a layout software myself. There's a lot that goes into laying out a picture book well. You can see on Amazon a number of books that just don't look professional. They don't have the professional layout. And that is not the mark that you want to have on your first book. So spend the money to get a professional graphic designer slash layout person to do your book. And I do have recommendations for you. You'll be able to download that list. Now, with the low end, a couple $100, if you're have a very simple and easy layout, it might even be less than that for like a toddler book. If you're typically mid-range is more like 350, and high end would be 700, although I've seen $1,000 or more with some who are laying out books. So, but this is the range for the ones that I'm going to be referring you to that you can particularly, you'll fall in about this range. So I'm going to put for mine the 350 for budgeting for my book. Project management and coaching. So there are a number of people who, especially if they're not going through this kind of an author work group, who need some hand holding. And project management, coaching, mentoring goes a long way in helping them to get that. So if you are someone who would like to get some hand holding and help, in addition to this work group, I do offer project management services as low as a few $100s through the course of your book. An average, I would say, I would recommend 600, and that would be for a 12-week period. 1,200 if you need a lot more help, setup of Amazon, keywords, categories, a bunch of additional things to help get you going, and you don't want to do those things yourself. Okay. So if I was going to budget as a new author, I would probably budget the 600. For my own book, I would just put 0 because as a project manager myself, I don't need that additional cost. Now we're going to go through the list of identifiers. These are things that you are going to need to purchase for your book. And these are things that you don't want to skip. First is ISBNs. Even though Amazon does provide you with free ISBNs, as does Ingram Spark or others that do print on demand, I do not recommend moving forward using their ISBNs. You're definitely going to want to own your own ISBN. Okay, so to purchase a pack of 10 ISBNs, it's $295. I am going to budget that for my book. Now you might say, why do I need 10 ISBNs? Well, if for the price of 2 ISBNs is just a little less than what you will pay for 10. And you are probably going to want to have an ebook, a paperback, a hardcover, maybe a coloring book. What about an audio book? So there's lots of different things that you will do that require ISBNs. So don't get caught short-sighted and grab a couple when you can get 10 for that price and maybe have enough to do 2 or 3 books with those ISBNs. Next is the copyright. You're going to want to protect your intellectual property. Now, if you are only copywriting once, your words, and you don't need to go back and copyright the illustrations. If, your illustrator has access or retains the copyright, perhaps it's only $65. I'm going to put, the mid-range would be 130, because if you do 2 copyrights, which is what I recommend, go in and copyright your words first, and then go back and do a copyright including the illustrations later. So that is what I'm going to budget for my book as well. The Library of Congress control number is another identifier that you need to go through and get for your copyright page, but you don't need to pay for it. It's free. the CIP block. CIP stands for Publishers Catalog in Publishing. That's what CIP stands for. So the Publishers Catalog in Publishing, this is something that goes on your copyright page, and it gives libraries information about how to categorize your book. It also marks your book as, something that is worthy of going to the library and being taken in by libraries. So I would definitely go through that process of registering and getting that CIP block. So I'm going to put the $75 there. Now, these companion products you might want to think about. These are completely up to you. Are you going to do a coloring book? Are you going to do some merchandise, some hats? What do you want to do to potentially get some additional things added besides just your book? So normally, if you're doing a coloring book, low end is, I'm not going to bother. Higher end is if you want to do a typical coloring book, it's probably around $500. And I would say the best way to calculate that is $15 times your 28 pages. And then actually, if you want activities also, then you're going to want to account for those. So let's just say 48 pages. Okay, so that comes up to $720 with activities. So I'm just going to make a note here, $15 per page, typically 10 to 15. Now, if we go to, on the higher end, you add more pages, then obviously it's going to be more costly. So I might say, okay, if we're doubling the amount of pages or whatever, then you could basically spend double on the book. Now, if it was me, I'm not going to do a coloring book for my book, so I'm just going to leave it at $0. If you want to get merchandise like t-shirts, hats, anything that additional that you want to add, I didn't put any estimates here because it's so variable, and I'm not going to budget anything for merchandise. I have enough already. But if you appreciate and want to do this, then just go to some of those sites like Vistaprint or others. There's also print on demand type of merchandising that can be done for t-shirts and hats and things like that. And I can say Printful, Amazon Merch could help you keep the price down because that's print on demand. So things to look at there. But for me, $0 budgeted for that. If you decide you want to add a plush, that's another thing as a companion product that you might want to go in and do a little research on. And there are some, great places to look or to get some quotes from. Gotatoy.com, I believe it is one of the ones, and I'll get the actual web reference and provide some additional information for those that want it. And I didn't put the details there because it varies based on the number, based on the complexity of the toy, how large it is. And I'm not going to order a toy with mine, so I'm going to put $0 for that. Promotional items. These I do recommend because while they are optional, they're going to help you so much with marketing. So a video trailer, for example, get the word out. Could be as simple as $40, as much as $120, based on my experience with the folks that I use. So I'm going to budget the $40 for the trailer, and I'm going to budget for a video read aloud at $80. Then there's bookmarks, stickers, brochures, banners, magnets, table runners. Depending on what you are doing, if you decide, hey, I really want to go to events and I need a table runner, I need to deck out a sign behind me or a stand-up thing, you're going to conferences, you really just need to plan out and do some research about what it is that you need here. For me, I am not interested in promotional items right now because I already have so much of that already for my other books and things like that that I done them for previously. So I don't need to necessarily do promotional items right now. If you are a new author and you want to create a logo or other branding, then coming together, hiring a graphic designer to help you with branding that you can then use for your website, your author page, and it could be something as simple as, you've got a Facebook page now that's your author page. And wouldn't it be great to have a nice banner on the top of it that looks really professional and beautiful that you need somebody else to help you with? Now, if you're using Canva, you can create a lot of these types of things yourself. So do look into that and see if you have the skill set and ability to do that, or if you know somebody that does. If you do not, and you need to hire someone to help you with graphic design and branding for your website or your content, I'm saying between 200 to 1,000, depending on exactly what it is that you need. I just felt like that was a decent range. So for me, I've already got all my branding and everything done, so I'm not going to budget for that either. With regard to website, now you don't have to go crazy with an author website. You don't need a $2,000 site. I put it here because there are some authors that have spent that to get their website up and running, and it's their beautiful website. From my perspective, a free Wix site with some graphic design help to make it pretty, it doesn't require a lot of expense. You can go with a homepage, a little bit about you, something to list your books and provide you with the ability to sell your books if you need it. And then contact information, a way for them to subscribe and get onto your email list. So there's not a lot. I mean, you could keep it very simple for around 250. 500 is kind of a mid-range. Get a little bit more time spent, maybe a little bit more design aspect to it. For me, I already have a website, so I don't need that. So I'm going to go ahead and just zero that out. Same thing with domain registration and website hosting. But if you do not have any of these things, then you'll want to consider going to GoDaddy, find your domain and see if, yourname.com is already taken, or however you want to pull to create your brand. It is good, and it's a good marketing to have a web page for them to go to, whether you use some hosting, very simple hosting like Wix or Squarespace, GoDaddy. Those are very simple. And some of these are so simple that you don't really need a lot of graphic design help, and you can do some of this yourself. So if you feel comfortable, or you have somebody that you know that does work on websites and it would be willing to help you, you can just zero that out. If you need some additional help, then do a little bit of budgeting for that. Okay, now we're going to talk about print on demand versus offset printing. So I'm specifically talking about out of pocket investment that you need. Offset printing is a good option if you are looking to get the price per book down as low as possible. The opposite side of that, though, is that you are going to have to invest money up front in order to be able to get that print run done. So, for example, if you're ordering 2,500 books, you typically are paying half of that when you place the order and half of it when they're just getting ready to ship it to you. And if 2,500 books can get you, in the neighborhood of a few dollars a book, then that's still quite a large investment when you first get started. So you can get your printing quotes. I do have a list that you can contact both inside the US and in China to give you some pricing and ability to just hone in on what that cost would actually be. What I recommend for new authors, this is your first book. You don't want to have hundreds or thousands of books sitting in a garage or having to store them and on a book that you've not yet tested with the market. Your first book is not going to be your best book. It's going to be the one that you start with. It's going to be near and dear to your heart, but verify that the market is there for your book. And also, you're going to be practicing marketing for the first time. So, as new authors, we typically don't do as well with marketing our books. And, how they sell is as much about how you market yourself and your book as it is about having a really great book. So, by choosing print on demand, I'm uploading files to Amazon, Ingram Spark, or one of the other platforms. And when a customer orders my book, then it's printed and shipped to them. I don't have to invest upfront in any kind of inventory. I just upload the files and the print on demand aspect saves me, which is what I'm going to do with my next book. So I'm going to budget 0 upfront cost. Now, you do also have the ability, even if you are doing print on demand, you have the ability to have author copies sent to you. So for example, my 8.5 by 8.5, which is the typical size of my books, cost me $3.65 for a paperback for me to buy my own paperbacks through Amazon as an author copy. Now they're listed at $12.99. So I can still buy them, sell them on my website, take them to events. Same thing with hardcovers as well. And you can do a mix and match, okay? If you want some higher quality hardcovers, there are places where you can do a short run, which is instead of ordering thousands, you can order, 20 books, 50 books, so that you have them. You'll pay more for that, but you can still order hardcovers on a short run or order less and have some that you can sign and sell as author copies. So you may even want to do a little bit of both of these things. So I'm not going to worry about paying for printing. I am going to say order a couple $100 worth so that I can have some for events and for selling on my website. So I'm just going to put that there. Now, ads, Amazon, BookBub, Goodreads, these are places that you can purchase advertisement, which is a great opportunity, especially with Amazon ads, because Amazon has this huge marketplace. And if you've done a really good job with keywords, and I will help you, we'll walk through that together, you will be able to get more traffic by using Amazon ads. And those people that are coming to your book and you're driving traffic to your book, if you've got a great quality book, you've got a good cover, great copy, then you are going to have the ability to then sell more books by using the advertisement. Some people like to do Facebook. I haven't had a lot of luck with Facebook ads. I feel like that's not really a shopping platform. It's more of, me checking on my grandkids, not wanting to buy things. So I'm not very likely to buy on Facebook, so I don't usually advertise on it either. And I have tried in the past. It just hasn't worked out well for me. So give yourself some budget for advertisement. And for me, I've seen people just start with a couple $100, as much as $500 for like the first month or two to see how things are going, or a couple $1,000s to really blast ads and help Amazon really index you well so that you can then stop advertising and get a bunch of organic sales. So somewhere between here is probably what you're going to spend on ads. I'm going to put down 1,200 for myself. I think that's about what I'll spend. This is not all encompassing. You may have other needs, like, for example, we haven't talked about publicity or copywriting. If you want somebody to come in and do some copywriting for you. If you have other needs, you can add them into this spreadsheet, make it your own, delete things that you don't need, don't want, or just zero them out. And then you get an opportunity to see what the typical standard ones look like. And then for me, I know I need to budget about $4,000 to make sure that I have enough to cover me for my next book. Okay. For those that are on the low end, if I'm looking at all of that, it's a few $1,000s. You can get away with less than that, especially if you're looking at some of the larger expenses here, like illustrations. If you really dial back on illustration cost, it can sacrifice quality. But I have seen illustrators who are really good at about $35 a page. And, if you need to cut back, I would say don't go less than that. If you are going to look for a student or something, somebody who is an illustrator and you're going to partner on your work together, those are options and opportunities to cut back. But at least you have an opportunity to look at the big picture and hone in on what that budget is. The standard budget in the middle, somewhere around $7,000. Again, you can go up, go down, and kind of go through the process. Keep track of what you spend and keep track of what you make. Starting with this budget spreadsheet is a perfect way to begin on that very important aspect of keeping track of the business side of things. Okay, if you have any questions, feel free to post them to the Facebook group and I will be happy to answer. Have a wonderful day.